Welcome everybody. My name's Jo Swires. I work for the Foundation for Common Land. I'm going to be your chair today. I'm going to quickly tell you what we're going to do, who's going to be doing it and why, and then we'll crack on, and I'll give you a little bit of housekeeping in a moment as well. So firstly, what we're going to do, hopefully that welcome slide gives you the overview. The Our Upland Commons project, which we've been working on for the past 4.5 years, the big £3 million project. The big delivery phase of that is coming towards an end. We've already talked quite a bit about what we've been learning. Today we want to share some of the practical things we're doing and other organisations are doing to take forward some of the learning from that. Who's going to be doing it? I'm going to be chairing, so you won't hear too much from me. I'll do a little intro and set the scene in a moment. Then we've got Tracy May from Dartmoor, who's going to be talking to us. Claire Brayburn, who's our project officer in Yorkshire, talking to Amanda Smith from the North York Moors. Then we've got Julia Aglionby talking to John Rowland and Hector Meanwell from Mungrisdale Commoner. And in the background, we've got Kinga Swobodzinski, who is helping to host, and Kira Booth. That's our team. So why are we doing this? Really, we want to inspire, encourage, and inform you, and hopefully excite you about some of the fantastic work that we think is ripe for taking forward on Commons, and share some of our learning and practice with you. So we've got an hour together. If you're not on the call, you're listening afterwards, we missed you. So please do listen to this if you've recorded it, or you want to come back and see anything afterwards, please do. Quick bit of housekeeping then. We have got on the screen a Q&A. So if you've got a question that you want to ask, we'll be taking questions after all the presentations. Pop your question in there. Use the chat to introduce yourself, or if you've got any technical issues, and we can try and help you with that. As I said, this session is being recorded. So if you've signed up to the session, you can listen to this again. If you've got colleagues who couldn't make it today, please do tell them. They'll be able to watch this back and see the slides and so on. One other thing I want to just point out before we start, at the top of the chat, I posted a link to the Our Upland Commons evaluation report, which I'm going to be telling you a little bit about in a minute. Do take a look at that. It's on our website. You can download it. There's some great stuff in there, lots of really good practical advice. So if you want to scroll up to the top of the chat, you will find the Our Upland Commons evaluation report there, and I highly recommend it. Okay, I think we've got a poll, Kira. Do you want to just launch that poll, and then I'll start, and I'll just get my PowerPoint up and running, ready for me to dive in. Okay, just about to share my screen. Getting it to a slideshow. There we are. Okay, so just for the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to give you a little overview of some of the learning and practical things that we're taking forward from the Our Upland Commons project. So this, what you can see in front of you there is the front cover of that evaluation report that I was telling you about. And the link is in the top of the chat. So just a reminder then, the Our Upland Commons project was I can't move forward. Why can't I move forward? There we go. The Our Upland Commons project was a project that's been running for about 4.5 years. Over 18,000 hectares of upland commons land have been included in it, which accounts for about 5% of all England's common land. 25 partner organisations have worked on it. The Foundation for Common Land has led on it. The National Trust were the accountable body, so we've worked really closely with the National Trust on it. So I'm just going to tell you a few things just to kind of set the scene about what for what we're going to be talking about over the next 40-50 minutes or so. Some of the key findings from the project in terms of how we work together and what we do to take this stuff forward are in that evaluation report. But what we want to do is bring them to life for you, really. So that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon. In the front, in the sort of middle spread, the double spread in that evaluation report, There's some great, I would call it, if you're into this kind of thing, a theory of change around, if you want to take the sort of technical term, but basically, what are the steps you take to doing great work on commons, working with commoners to get the most from a social point of view, from an economic point of view, and from an environmental point of view? So what do you do to bring those three things together to secure sustainable commoning for the future? That's what that middle spread in that report is all about. So I'm going to whiz through it. This is a little summary of it. There's loads of words in here. Don't feel like you need to read them all. It's just to give you a little taster, really. So from a social point of view, and this for us as Foundation for Common Land, and through this project and everything that we've learned, we had 200 people got together from all sorts of organisations at a conference back last November. And I think the overarching kind of conclusion from everybody and thinking about how we take these things, this stuff forward, was that people are at the heart of change. So this is a very social process. And one of the key things we've learned through our model in our Upland Commons, having that single point of contact. So starting with people, with one person, we've had commons facilitators in our 4 different areas to move this work forward, was absolutely key. So that was the starting point. And then moving from that is to crack on and do practical things to see what works, to see what happens, to build momentum and to put people at the heart of it. So that's our social bit. The next bit is the economic bit. If farm businesses are not thriving, if there's no point in doing this from a sort of business point of view, then the question is, why are you doing it? So this starts again with understanding what is going on the ground from a commoner's point of view. So again, starting with commoners, what are their drivers and challenges? What's the data telling us? What's the information there? Starting with that, and then moving on to the practical stuff again. So having a go, trying things out, and seeing what works. So I suppose there's a bit of a theme here: gaining understanding, learning what's going on, and then cracking on with practical support. So that's the economic stuff. Again, you'll see this in the middle bit of that report that I've told you about. Then finally, environmentally, and we know that commons can over-deliver from an environmental point of view. The amount of SSSI on common land is enormous. There's so much that we can do for biodiversity and climate change on commons. So this environmental stuff, again, the other bit of those 3 circles, starting with gathering the data, what's there, what's going on, and then thinking about what we could do and trying stuff out, whether it's peat restoration plans, animal livestock health, tree surveys, whatever. There's loads of stuff that we've done through the Our Upland Commons project with a whole heap of other organisations to move things forward and try things out practically that are going to improve the environment. So have a look at that. I think you'll find that interesting. A couple of more slides from me. Just 4 things to say really in terms of where we go next with that learning and what we can all do together, either as individual commoners, through our organisations, commoners councillors, NGOs, whatever it is. What are the things that we think we want to do and could do together for the future, this framework for future action? So there's 4 themes that have come out of all the learning that we've done through our evaluation and all the feedback that I imagine a lot of you on this call have given us. So we've broken it into 4 themes. It's there in the report. Scaling up. So we've had our proof of concept. We've been trying this out for the last 4 years. We've covered a lot of ground, but really there's still so much more to do. So that little note there is just saying a little bit more. There's a huge demand to do more, and we know that there's lots of opportunity to scale this work up. The other thing, and this webinar is a good example, one of the things that we found, absolutely delighted that 200 people have signed up for this webinar today. We've had loads of good learning opportunities, sharing case studies, getting together and so on. We know that there is a real need for and a value that people value these opportunities to share good practice and experiences. And we've seen throughout the programme that when we do that, others then go away and put stuff into practice and have a go. The third thing that I would say that we've learned and that we think can frame this future action is having support which is place-based. So it's that local capacity, local facilitation, things that are going on the ground in the area that you live and work in, or that commoners live and work in. So it's not about something that's some national scheme that covers everybody in the same way. It doesn't. It's about having place-based support. And finally, this bottom-up approach is what we think is really key. So a new era is needed, really, if we're really serious about taking this stuff forward, where commoners are the agents of change. They're not subject to it, but they're the ones who drive it. Okay, that's my bit, just to give you a flavour of what's in that evaluation report and set the scene for our guest speakers today. You'll read that bit in there. You can read that while I just introduce you to our first speaker, and that is Tracy May, who we are really grateful to have you here, Tracy. Tracy has been, in the last couple of days, heavily involved in responding to this horrendous fire on Dartmoor. So we appreciate you taking time out of what I think has been a really stressful situation, Tracy, to join us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll stop sharing and then you can crack on. Thanks, Tracy.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. So if I share my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we're all good. Thank you, Tracy. That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about how we've been working collaboratively on Dartmoor to achieve a couple of really great projects over the last sort of six, 8 months. They've both been FiPL funded. One's been a Millennia control trial, and the other is a Dartmoor wide wildfire plan, which is very topical considering what's happened over the last few days. It won't move. Sorry. Right. So we got the Millennia control trial. It's a collaboration between 2 commons associations on different parts of Dartmoor, which is the Forest of Dartmoor and Harford Nugborough. And we've been working with 2 ecologists. It's, as I said, funded by FiPL, but we've also had match funding and support from the Upland Commons project. This sort of came about because large areas of Dartmoor are absolutely dominated by dense Millennia. It's getting rapidly more so, increasing in area. It's making it harder and a lot more dangerous for the commoners when they're out trying to travel across this to check their stock, because you can't see where you're going, you can't see what's in front of you. So everything's ending up being concentrated on just a few tracks that there are, and those are getting eroded, and you're also getting increasing confrontations between livestock and the public, which causes its own problems. There's a general decline in biodiversity and SSSI condition, but we've also got a massive increase in fuel load and fire risk. So back in October 23, we held a Millennia Management Day, which was, as you can see on the screen, 25 experts and other people all met to discuss what to do about the Millennia. And everyone agreed that we couldn't do nothing because it was just causing more and more problems. So we agreed to trial different methods of Millennia control that could be carried out by the commoners themselves, rather than the work like the peatland restoration, which is massive projects with lots of external contractors. We were saying, well, what can the actual commoners do to help this? So we carried out some trials on 4 sites, 2 on the forest, 1 on Harford Nugborough, using the forest soft track and flail, which was also funded by FiPL. You can see the soft track on the picture, and it can access everywhere on the moor. It will travel all over the deep peat and the blanket bog. If a quad bike can go there, the soft track will go there. And so on each site, we trialled cutting, rolling and chain harrowing. And this was monitored by some ecologists. I'm doing a very quick whiz through of what we did. So the ecologists assessed the trial areas. The commoners monitored the sites and took photos and noted any stock present. And we actually found that cattle, sheep and ponies were all grazing the Millennia. So what we achieved with this was we showed that the treatments have reduced the Millennia thatch. There's little litter left on any of the sites. Cutting and harrowing most effective. though the cutting uses a lot more fuel and is slower. You need follow-up grazing. All 3 species graze the Molinia. The areas need to be close to existing livestock and have routes connecting them together. And you've got to have enough animals to graze effectively. So from what we found here, we're now expanding this and doing more areas and gradually moving out. So where you've started doing some work and you've opened an area up and you've got the livestock into there, you can then expand that area outwards. But you've got to start small and work out. The other project is the Dartmoor Wide Wildfire Plan, which is a collaboration between the Dartmoor Commoners Council, the National Park, local commoners associations and individual commoners, once again FiPL funded, and match funding from the Dartmoor Fire Partnership and support from our Upland Common. The Fire Partnership has been around for about 20 years, and we started with a fire plan for the Forest of Dartmoor, and you've got multiple people, a party to it, all come together to create a strategic plan for reducing the effect of wildfire on Dartmoor. So it's how we all work together. So in this project, there's 86 common land units on Dartmoor, represented by 35 local commons associations, and they cover an area of 36,000 hectares. And you can see the commons all outlined in red on that map. So what we did under this plan was we wanted to create wildfire plans for all the commons so that they covered for the whole of Dartmoor. Some of them already existed in paper form, so we've digitized all those maps. We've worked with the commoners associations to update the information and fill in the gaps, and created maps for every common. We've also on the ground done practical work of creating fire breaks by cutting each side of the existing tracks. We've enabled better access by looking at strategic river crossings and how you can improve them so that it's safer and easier to get across, especially in a stressful situation like a fire. Repaired tracks where they needed doing. But it's also all about getting all the information held on one system that can actually be accessed by all the stakeholders and can be easily updated. So it's not just we've done this today and then it's out of date. It's keep it actually current and changing. So by working together, as you can tell, we've had lots of different people involved in this, and we've achieved so much more together than we ever could have done separately. With the Molinia control trial, we had the Hug commoners and owners, they just such enthusiasm and a wide skill set to pull this project together and to get it all up and running. Tamsin Thomas from the foundation, she facilitated it and helped so much get this all working and getting it through FiPL. And all the work was done with the forest soft track. So without that piece of kit, we couldn't have even started the project. Working with the ecologists has been great because they've been advising us on how to do it, what areas we should do it on. They've assessed the areas, they've analysed it, they're creating a procedure that the commoners can continue the monitoring in the future. You had the Hug commoners, they had a local contractor they knew got to do the work on their common. On the really difficult to get at bits on the forest, we ended up with driver from the Southwest Peatland Partnership contractors doing the work there. So once again, it's just all about who you know and who you can get to do this stuff. And the company that built the soft track, they sent somebody down to train everyone who wanted to drive it. So it was just so many different people from different places working together to make the whole work. With the fire plan, we had Tamsin facilitating it, and she worked with the local commoners associations to draw up these fire plans. We had Ian Donovan from the fire service was providing advice and templates, and he also organised training sessions for any commoners who wished to do it. the commoners and the national park knew all sorts of different contractors that we could call in to do the work. They were experienced themselves in managing work, so we could have lots of different things happening in lots of different places, you know, all at the same time. And without the South West Peatland Partnership contractors, we wouldn't have had experienced drivers for the soft track, but they also came with their low pressure diggers and did the river crossings for us. And we ended up with the contractor that the Hug Commoners had found with the Millennia project. He carried on working for us, and he ended up doing work on multiple commons. So it was just a real, everybody pulling together, respecting each other, trusting each other. It was a fantastic project. And in 6 months, we created 29 wildfire response plans and maps, which have all been digitised. We've trained 8 local association secretaries to use the QGIS mapping system. We trained 80 commoners to work with the fire service to fight fires, widened 54 kilometres of tracks to at least 6 metres, repaired 500 metres of eroded track, and improved 25 river crossings. So we achieved a fantastic amount. We're now looking to carry on this work and do another phase to this plan. So it's expanding the work on the ground, finalising all the, filling in any gaps left with the fire plans. Yeah, so this just gives you a quick snapshot of some of the work that happens. Those 3 lots of work were being done by 3 different contractors on 3 different commons, being managed by the commoners themselves on those commons. And they just threw TAMS in and said, we need to do this work here. Ardo said, right, yeah, what's the budget? Yes, you can get on and do it. Send me photos and the bill. And they got on and did it. It was just fantastic, the work. Okay.
That is great. Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. I was making a few notes as we were talking through that then, and you ticked many of our boxes for the stuff that we've been talking. I was talking about at the beginning, commoner-led, lots of collaboration, bringing people together, that facilitated through no doubt your work, Tracy, and Tamsin's, that place-based approach, but that is very sort of local to Dartmoor, the scaling up, sharing of information and making it accessible, and then the sort of practical getting things done. So they were great examples. Thank you for sharing those. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So we're heading north and east now, up to the North York Moors National Park, where I have got hopefully Claire Braben, our project officer. There you are, Claire. Great. And Amanda, who I think is having trouble putting her video on, but we've got Amanda Smith. She's there. Brilliant. We can see you, Amanda. That is great. And they're going to be talking to us about a project that's we've been working on in the last few months in the North York Moors National Park. I will hand over to the 2 of you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jo. Okay, so thanks very much. So as you know, I'm Claire Braben. I'm the project facilitator for Yorkshire. And joining me is Amanda Smith, who's administrator for Fylingdales Moors CIC and a North York Moors farmer. So we were blessed with having a conversation with the North York Moors National Park this time last year about a particular project that we could look to get some FiPL funding for. And over the course of the coming months, we built some lovely, really basic tools to help support the commoners over there in the North York Moors. Based on our lovely model of the OUC project, which, as we know, is all about people at the centre. So we wanted to look at sharing skills, enhancing wildlife habitat. We looked at galvanising associations, flock health, equipping commoners with skills, tools, making sure that they're ELM ready, and connecting organisations with a bit of public engagement thrown in. So that was kind of the model. So we therefore took elements of that to see how we could produce a bit of a scoping project in the North York Moors. We hadn't worked with the National Park over there before, or the commoners, so this was very much a new project. They'd kind of seen what was happening over in the Dales and wanted to bring us over there a little bit and expand those regions. So it's a great way of showing how the OUC has a brilliant model for going forward. Those of you who don't know where North York Moors National Park is, we've got this little model here, which is the UK, and it's just above York. It's a beautiful stretch of the world that is near Whitby and on the east coast. It's 44,000 hectares, so it's an enormous expanse of land is the North York Moors. It is also the largest heather moorland in England and Wales, so it's a really beautiful part of the world for me to be working in. We looked at Danby, Goathland and Fylingdales in particular. With it being a short scale project, we wanted to make sure that we delivered what we can as a scope for now to see what was really required over there. There's 19 plus commons. They're all triple SIs and managed through HLSCS agreements currently, and large grouse moor shooting estates. And I put this little extract in from the evaluation, which was all about understanding that a delivery-based model works. And it's not just about having lots of chats around a table. It's about actually, what do we deliver? How do we deliver it? And that then builds trust with one another and creates those relationships that are so important with farmers, as we know. So with that in mind, we looked at some practical solutions. So we looked at a forum for collective sharing and collaboration for the North York Moor Commoners. Basically, their HLS agreements were delivered in individual commons, but there was no threading through of those peer networks. So we wanted to create a group that they'd, allow each other to have those conversations. And the Federation for Yorkshire Commoners hadn't been active in quite a while. So they hadn't really got a space to really sort of engage in those conversations with one another. Ways in which we did that, Amanda's going to talk about briefly. We looked at stakeholder maps to ensure that we had those really good relationships with those people who were in and around the North York Moors as well. So landowners, North York Moors Association, Port Leeds, the Moorland Association, families, other graziers, all of those different people who interconnect with the commoners as well, and how best to work with those in the future as well. We looked at funding opportunities for post-March, other FiPL agreements. We looked at governance, legal support, and really excitingly, we looked at GPS tracking of Bluetooth on sheep, which I'll talk about in a little bit more. Amanda, if I can ask you how this came about initially. How did you have those conversations with those farmers, and how did you feel it went initially?
Initially, the interest just came from a couple of farmers, as Claire said, who were interested in setting up a group for peer support. And I was approached by one of those commoners, particularly, who asked me if I would join personally with my skills that I previously had from previous employment, and with being the administrator of Fylingdales CIC. And it sort of escalated from there, really. There was a couple of main drivers who contacted Claire themselves and very proactive, and just a couple of really proactive people that made it happen on the ground, really.
Yeah, what do you think that they really wanted to get out of the project? What was the main aims that were discussed initially?
They just wanted they just wanted somewhere to be able to go for support and advice, and collaboratively be able to come together with their peers to discuss different management techniques, and talk about how particularly environmental stewardship schemes were run. And going forward into CS, that's quite important for quite a lot of them, and how they take that forward. But they need a forum to be able to discuss that, and bringing people together is important, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I alluded to in the presentation, delivering what you promised. So, how did we go about doing that initially? How did it sort of take motion at the start?
I think really the most important thing was that we could provide them with practical tools to support their work and their collaborative working. So the graziers asked for a weed wiper. That was something they were really, really keen to have. So we've actually bought one of those through the first tranche of FiPL funding, and we now have an internal agreement in place with 18 out of 25 graziers who are going to share this piece of kit, and have agreed to maintain it and store it, and use it on their in-buy, particularly more than on the common land. And that's been facilitated basically through a WhatsApp group as to where it moves about. So I think it's delivering what you promised. We promised them a weed wiper and we've delivered it, and they're really happy with that.
Yeah, that's right. I think and I think it'll be proof in the pudding, won't it, of actually seeing how that works on the ground over the coming months as well, quite literally. I just want to take you back to looking at the sheep tracking as well now. So if I just go to share this bit here. So part of the model of what we did as well was to look at GPS sheep tracking. We know that geofence works brilliantly on cows, but sheep has been a little bit more of a tricky area to use and fix a piece of kit too. So what we did as part of the scoping project was identify 2 different farmers on 2 different commons, and even looked at 3 different breeds of sheep to trial this a GPS tracker. And what we did was, after a couple of realizations of what didn't work, we chose to glue the little trackers onto the shoulders of the sheep. And there was no effect to the sheep whatsoever. We just kind of trimmed down a little bit of the wool and allowed that glue to adhere. And then what you see here in the picture is the top left is our farmer gluing on the little tracker. And the middle picture is the data that you get from the dashboard overview. All those little green stamps there are sheep with trackers on. The brown area in the middle, I'm sure those of us who are in the North York Moors on this call recognise that's Glenderamackin Common. And you can see all the sheep around the bottom of the common are already starting to enjoy some of the habitat area around there. And on the right is an individual sheep. So this was on Goathland, where this particular shot was taken. The little stamp in the middle is your sheep, and all those lines are the up and downness of that particular sheep who clearly had a track on that particular moor. So those 2 bits of information have been really, really exciting for us to deduce grazing patterns, habitats, where are the sheep going, being able to look at them when they've wandered off. Each of those moors have been geofenced, which means that the farmer then gets a little alert to his phone when a sheep has wandered off track. And down on the left, you will see a little WhatsApp message that one of the farmers sent me to say, look, I've just found my sheep 4.5, 5 miles away. I now know where they are, so I can go and get them. And this is incredible for understanding how sheep work on the moor, interactions with hefts. And it's producing some really, really interesting information that we've now got a university involved with actually mining that data to understand more about what that's really going to tell us, to allow the farmers more knowledge going forward, engagement with Natural England, etc. So that's a really exciting project that's come out of this particular piece of work. I'm just going to stop sharing this screen. Okay. So, Amanda, the group grew from strength to strength, really, didn't it? I mean, we had 23 commoners who came to the meetings pretty much every month. Of course, we fed them well, which matters. But it was really great to have other invited guests there as well as part of that programme, wasn't it? We had the Blackface Sheep Association, we had Julia, who came along to talk to us, the Federation of Cumbria Commoners, and that helped us shape how and what the group wanted to look like going forward. Could you tell us a little bit about what some of those conversations that you were part of towards the end in terms of the evaluation of the project and what they might like to see as a result of what we'd already started?
Yeah, well, they were all really keen to see the group continue and really supportive of us seeking additional funding to allow that to happen. And there were some great ideas now how we take other projects forward with regards to bracken management and talks around animal health, a little project with regards to scab and ticks treatment, etc., and Lupinel, and engagement with the public, I suppose, and the wider community of the area with some really good ideas, which hopefully we can move forward with secure some additional funding to keep it going. And I think the main thing is that we open it up to more commoners now. We're at a stage where we've just been specifically to the 3 commons that we're using, but an opportunity to open it wider for other people to join and be able to take advantage of the support and projects going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And you know, essentially this whole project has been delivered on the baseline of the model from the OUC existing project. And just to mention as well that we have a farm business opportunities course that's going to be run in the North York Moors in June. And that's free for anybody who's working on or with commons to attend. And so if you're interested in that, I know Kinga's going to pop the link into the chat, and we'd love for you to have a look at that. It's a free course with bursary places, and it's looking like it's going to shape up to be an extremely brilliant course that's already been run successfully in Cumbria. So yeah, I would urge you to have a look at that as well. And I think anything else to add, Amanda, or is that enough to think from us?
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire, and thanks, Amanda, for joining us. So that was the project that very recently got going last autumn in the North York Moors National Park, and came about, you know, as a group of commoners in the North York Moors expressing interest in getting some support and setting up a network between them to support each other and collaborate. So that, thinking back to that sort of social circle that I showed you at the beginning, that was really where all that started from. And then those couple of practical things that we've done in the first 6 months of working with that group, and that group getting itself going, were around the sheep tracking, which was initially around security really, and thinking about sheep thefts on the common, but trialing these trackers is opening up lots of other opportunities in terms of monitoring grazing patterns, seeing where the hefts move to, thinking about different habitats, all the rest of it. So loads going on there, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that in the future. So thanks for that. I am now moving on to our third, we're going west now over to Cumbria, to our third set of speakers. So we've got Julia here, who's going to be joined by John and Hector in a moment, from Mungrisdale Commons. So I'll pass over to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. It's absolutely great to see everybody here, and so much interest in this topic. As Joe said, you know, 21% of SSIs, of all SSI land, is common land. We know there are massive opportunities. At the same time, commons are absolutely critical to the businesses of nearly 4,000 farmers. So where the work that we're doing at the Foundation for Common Land is ensuring that we can enhance the natural and cultural heritage of commoning through sustainable commoning, sustainable grazing systems. And the project I'm going to talk a little bit about now is very exciting. It's a landscape recovery development phase. It's called Resilient Glenderamackin. And can people see the slides there?
Yeah, that's all good. Thanks.
Great. So it's a Resilient Glenderamackin. It's a landscape recovery, and we're looking at how we can deliver on commons. So far, there haven't been, and in a moment I'll introduce John and Hector, but I just want to say a little bit about those people who don't necessarily know what landscape recovery is. So landscape recovery is the sort of top tier of the environmental land management schemes, and so it's DEFRA funded scheme, but it also allows the incorporation of private finance as well as public finance, and it's covering, you have to have at least 500 hectares, but this scheme covers, there are over 5,000 hectares of common land, and also another 40-50 farms that are involved as well. So this project, and if you think of you're at Penrith and you head going west to Keswick, it's that block of land between Penrith and Keswick and down towards Thirlmere, and includes Blencathra, a very iconic mountain in the Lake District. And the West Cumbria Rivers Trust has been leading this work, and they had a Natural Environment Investment Readiness Fund, and then that enabled them to apply to DEFRA for Landscape Recovery Development Phase. They don't own any of the land, and they work collaboratively with farmers in this area. They approached the Foundation for Common Land. They knew the work we were doing with our upland commons, and they said, could we support them in terms of enabling and having our conversations with the commoners and with the common landowners. It's really important to include common landowners as well as commoners, as others have said. And we said, that's great, but it's also what's really important is that commoners and the owners have agency in terms of the negotiations, how the power dynamics work. And we recommended that they had a contract as part of their development phase with the Commoners land agents. Turns out that all 3 commons in this area use the same land agent, so they're using H&H Land and Estates, and then the Foundation for Common Land are assisting as well. So this is a map of the area, and you can see, I think on this map there are about 40 different farms involved, and the commons are, we have here at the top the pink, yellow and green. Those are 3 common land units and together make up Mungrisdale Commoners Association. We then have the sort of pastel orange area at the bottom, which is Matterdale Common, that's about 1,000 hectares, and we have Threlkeld Common here, the pastel purpley pink, and that's about 500 hectares. So we're working together with commoners across there. Some of these commoners are involved as well with the landscape recovery on their own farms, and landscape recovery is a 20-year scheme, and at the moment they're just in development phase, so nobody is committed yet to go into it. All 3 commons are in schemes that run out in 2028, so they've got another couple of years ahead, and we all know that there's a lot of uncertainty around the future of funding for environmental land management. The government is committed to the principle of public money for public goods, but there are concerns over the budget and also how transition is going to occur. So at this stage, we've been going through a series of conversations, and I'd like to now introduce John Rowland, who is Secretary of the Mungrisdale Commoners. And John is also chair of the Federation of Cumbria Commoners, so he comes with 2 hats and is very well versed in the challenges and opportunities and joys of commoning in Cumbria. And also Hector Meanwell, and Hector is farm manager, Low Beckside Farm in Mungrisdale, and Low Beckside Farm is owned by the Ernest Cook Trust. It was the Newton Rig Farm. So that's so now we're going to have a bit of a chat, Hector and John. It's lovely that you've been able to join us. Thank you very much. Firstly, Hector, could I ask you why, in terms of your position as farm manager, you were interested in looking into the landscape recovery as an alternative to the current high-level stewardship?
Well, the HLS is going to run out, and we don't know whether we're going to be able to get another one. So, the landscape recovery is over 20 years, so it offers you quite a bit of stability. It's index linked as well, so like our current HLS has been going a lot of years now, so it's not worth as much as it was when we started. So that the index linked payments is good. And there's so much uncertainty about what schemes are going to be available. If we can get signed up to one now that is 20 years, I think it's quite a safe bet for us.
Great. John, do you have anything to add to that in terms of other members of the group?
Well, I think the other members of the group they all seem quite positive towards it. Like I said, it's lots of uncertainty what's going to happen in 2028. We're 17 years into an agreement. In 2028, the payments will be 20 years old, probably worth about half what they were in 2007, 2008. So plus there's a lot of common agreements coming to an end, or all HLS agreements come to an end in 2028. So it could be a bit chaotic then if we can get into a scheme now that is potentially worth more than the HLS agreement we're in. It can only be to our benefit.
Yeah. So that sounds very sensible. Keep looking at all options at this stage, getting some stability into the business. One of the things, obviously, you've both mentioned the importance of funding and payments. Starting out with you, John. I mean, it looks as though landscape recovery might offer considerably higher payments for delivering public goods. Do you see that there's going to need to be changes in farming systems in order to incorporate the sort of ambitions of landscape recovery?
I think, well, there probably will be some more stock to come off if some more areas are going to be fenced off for woodland pasture, or it's a triple SI, so naturally we're now going to want some more sheep off. Which is going to be a bit of a sore point. We had a 28% reduction for to get our 3-year rollover for HLS, which didn't go down very well with the other commoners, but in a triple SI we didn't have much choice. But at the end of the day, people want to keep farming. They want to keep sheep on the common. It's what gets them up in the morning, and you know they're going to want to keep as many sheep as possible on the common.
Yeah. So currently you've fenced off about 3% of the common under the current HLS, and they're talking potentially of fencing up to sort of 8-9%, isn't it? So there's still going to be, you know, the majority. Hector, have you been thinking at all about how you might change? Do you think you'll need to change your sheep flock at all, or look at different ways of operating the farm?
I'm hoping we don't have to reduce to too many less, because otherwise it's going to get to the point where there's hardly any sheep out there now at certain times of the year, and the hefts are all getting bigger and bigger and bigger and spreading out because there's not the wall of sheep to hold them back. So I think we will have to reduce stock slightly. I don't really want to, because it's very undergrazed as it is anyway. The bracken and the heathers, the grass is getting out of control, but I don't think we're going to have much choice in that matter.
Yeah, it seems as though, from what I've seen, that the proportions, if 8%, they're not needing the common to be great. It's at a good level at the moment. You're delivering well for favourable, you know, you're on the journey to that. But as obviously, as John, as you say, if areas get fenced off, then there's a pro rata reduction there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, the Lake District is famous clearly for its hefted sheep, as many other parts of the country. It's a World Heritage Site. Do you feel that landscape recovery is compatible with traditional shepherding systems?
I suppose we don't, to a large extent, we don't know what extent it will affect testing. Obviously, start fencing faces off, pushes sheep onto different areas, and it can stop sheep accessing areas. Certainly with the block that was fenced in this farm's heft, it blocked off sheep getting onto that side of the fell. It cut through all the sheep trods, and there's virtually no sheep at all on that side of the valley. Heftings, you know, I think 4 stocks of sheep went off about foot and mouth time, never came back. That affected hefting in a big way. Sheep moved, you know, those empty spaces, sheep moved. So some areas are getting undergrazed. It's not going to improve hefting. I don't think it's going to make it much worse. Okay, so
it's challenges already. Hector, would you recommend that other areas of common land look at landscape recovery as a potential way forward?
Yeah, I think we should definitely look at it, but also we're in very early stages. We've not signed up to any agreements yet, so there's a lot of work to do before we actually get anywhere. And I did just have a comment on the question you asked John there. Yes, it probably will ruin hefting, but also it might give people enough financial incentive to actually keep sheep on the fell and keep the hefts going. You know, if they can then afford, you know, if the payments are better, the people that maybe got 100 sheep on thinking about coming off, if they're getting paid more money to manage that area, it might keep them on.
Yeah, so structuring the payments to make sure there's active grazing. We've been talking about that you have to keep a certain number of sheep on the fell. You don't get the payments for doing nothing. You get the payments for having an active flock of sheep, encouraging active grazing. Do you see that as important?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Coming to the end now. You know, in terms of the way you've been having the discussions, as I've said, there's been a land agent, you know, different landscape recovery projects are working in different ways. The way this one was structured was to have a land agent engaged to do those negotiations, to help with those negotiations, and to have those one-to-one discussions as well as group discussions. What do you feel has worked well with the discussion so far, and are there ways that we could improve upon this?
I think, well, initially they came around to see us all the active graziers individually to get their views and, you know, what they might be willing to take forward. You know, without somebody independent like that, it just wouldn't happen. And commoners, there's always a bit of friction in the Commons Association, and you need somebody independent to just greatly organise things, and you know, see you get everybody's individual opinions and then try and collate them rather than people shouting in the meeting and arguing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Good. So that's important, that independent facilitation. How do you feel, Hector, about how we can best negotiate these group agreements?
I think they have the way they've done it is right, because if you went to a meeting and said, what does everyone want to do, no one would speak first, because no one would want to openly agree to anything till everybody else had. I think the issue is some hefts have got more public goods than others, more peat, more areas for potential woodland. So some people are going to end up worse off than others. So it's working out the payment rates for that, which all has to be done by someone external, because otherwise it'd be seen as biased, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so it's the distribution of the payments is really important, having a sort of degree of equity, isn't it? Remember, the thing about common rights is that although you have your heft, you have the ability to graze anywhere on the common legally, don't you? So it's making sure we get that balance right, and everyone feels they've got a fair deal. I'm just really conscious of time, and we've got quite a few questions. That's been incredibly helpful to have your views. I appreciate, just so everyone knows, this hasn't been submitted yet, still in the development phase. And in the summer, the idea is that we'll be having putting a proposal through to DEFRA, and it's up to the commoners, all the 3 commoners associations, to individually decide whether they want to go forward, as well as the individual farmers. It's not compulsory. You can still stay in the HLS. So it's a sort of opportunity to explore at this phase. Hector and John, thank you so much. I know these are complex issues to discuss, and thanks for your time doing that, particularly when lambing and things are still going on at the moment. So yes. So Joe, I think it's now back to you for some questions, isn't it?
It is back to me. So we've got a few questions in the Q&A. We've tried to answer 1 or 2 of them online. But I'm going to come round to our lovely panelists. I think there's a few questions around Dartmoor, Tracy. So just giving you the little heads up there. So I'm going into the Q&A now. We'll just spend 5 minutes on this, because I'm aware we've said we'll finish by 1. Not 1. That's gone. 1:30. So I'll take them from the top then. We've got a question from Stephen. Hi, Stephen, over in Nidderdale, I believe. It says, I would like to answer this question. So the question there is about knowledge transfer to the next generation, and how we pass that knowledge on, and getting the next generation involved. I don't know if anybody wants to say something around that in terms of the projects that we've been talking about today. I know the work in the North York Moors, we've had people of the next generation, if you like, joining that group and coming along. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything about that.
I'd just say one of the things which this has come out of the fire that we've had in the last couple of days on Dartmoor, that with the commoners, because the commoners actually go out and fight the fires alongside the fire service, and the majority of the commoners that came out were all the younger generation. It is changing. It was a very different turnout to the previous fire that we'd had to do. This is wildfires in 2019. And I reckon the average age was probably 20 years younger this time than the previous time.
Thanks, Tracy. If any of our panelists want to type any answers in while we're talking, so I'm not sure we're going to get through all of these in the time that we've got. But while I've got you, Tracy, there's a couple of other questions around Dartmoor. So one is around whether those fire plans are now on a central database that we've been working on, and are they making any difference yet, for example, to that recent fire?
The recent fire was on the Forest of Dartmoor, and we've had our fire plan. Ours was the original, and it's been up and running for nearly 20 years now. So it didn't have that much of an effect on this fire, but we've still got to just finish off the last few bits, but it's getting it on a thing called Q fields, which people can share with. You can share it with multiple different people, but also if a contractor goes up and cuts a fire break, they can track their phone when they do it, and then upload
Okay.
that data to QFields, so you keep it all current and moving. So that's sort of just that last step that we've got to do still.
Yeah. I don't know about the other 5 plans. Sorry, Tim, where they're up to now. I know Tamsin has been working on them in the last few months, so that's still very much a sort of live bit of work that's going on as well. But I think that's the intention.
They're all
digitized
and on the mapping system.
All right, thanks, Tracy. Okay, then we've got another question around, well, sort of more a comment really from Libby around hefting, and we talked a little bit about that in the Lake District. I don't know if is there anything else to add to that one that anybody wants to say about the importance of traditional hefted herds and flocks?
Well,
somebody's got a thumbs up there. I think.
Chip in there. I mean, I think it's a huge challenge, Joe. And as John was explaining, a lot of the hefting system has been under stress and strain a lot since foot and mouth and since changes. So and it's very difficult if farms aren't viable for them to have enough time for shepherding as well. So you have a combination of sheep flocks reducing, so you don't have the weight of the sheep holding the hefts in place, and then you don't have enough time for people to go up shepherding. So one of the key things is, as you pointed out in your other stuff, is making sure that businesses are thriving financially. And it was interesting what Hector said. If people aren't, if there's enough money there, then people will keep grazing. What we don't want to have is it to become uneconomic to graze, because then we lose the hefting system completely.
We've got the same issues on Dartmoor.
Yeah. There's another Dartmoor related question here, Tracy. It's a massive one from Jonathan, who I believe is in the moors, in the North York Moors up here. Has a reduction in stocking increased the malignant and fire risk? I'm assuming that is directed at Dartmoor, Jonathan.
Yes.
That's a reduction.
Absolutely. The main reason why the fire ended up so big, and it was probably, we reckon it's between around sort of 500 hectares, not as it's been in the press at 12,500 acres. The reason it was so big was because there were no tightly grazed areas. It was all Malinia, and there's no way you could stop it. It just went with the wind. And the main problem we had was stopping it going north, because if it had gone north, it could have carried on burning for another 8 miles. And so it has had a massive difference. The fuel load that's up there now is exponentially more than it was 15 years ago.
Okay, thanks for that, Tracy. So that's answered your question, hopefully, Jonathan. Last one then, and then we'll just have a quick wrap up. If you don't mind hanging in there for a couple of minutes more, but if you need to go, of course, we won't hold that against you. So Stephen, just last one then. Another one from Stephen. Is it just the active graziers that get all the money? At the end of the day, they do all the work and take the risks. I'm assuming you mean in when you're in a scheme, Stephen. Julie's typing you an answer.
I'm typing. I can answer it on.
Oh right. Yeah, that'd be great if you can. Great, thanks. There you go.
Yeah, it varies very much from common to common. So it depends on the balance. All common rights are equal in law, but clearly there are people who are putting in the work and grazing the commons. But if some of the active graziers aren't grazing, then that allows, and you have to get to a set number of sheep. It does allow those who are active to graze a few more. So different commons take different approaches. And in some cases, all the money's with the active graziers. In some cases, there's a small amount of money that goes to the non-active graziers as well, particularly those who are farmers. If people live in London, and we have people who have houses in Mayfair and have some common rights somewhere, and they're not actively engaged in the common, then that's a different matter. But if people are neighbouring farmers, and it's also a matter of risk management, because we need the scheme to be secure, and in the case of landscape recovery, for 20 years, and you've got to make sure that those rights are tied up. So we have lawyers involved and making sure that the scheme can't be disrupted, because you've committed to reduce, for instance, winter numbers. It's really important that you know that that's a robust agreement going forward. So it's context specific, Stephen, and we look at that really carefully.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks for that. Okay, we've done our hour and a little bit more. So thank you everybody for staying with us. We have covered a huge amount of ground in that hour, haven't we? You know, feel free to, we'll send the recording out of this if you want to go in and look at anything again, or just read anything or follow any of those links. You know, please do that. In terms of what next, this is probably our final sort of Our Upland Commons project webinar with a lot of the stuff that we've learned through that project and that programme, and also thinking about what we're taking forward, and lots of other organisations are doing the same. We will have more webinars in the future. Take a look at our website regularly, I would say at the moment. Get on our mailing list if you haven't, because we're constantly sending out useful bits of information, updates on our website, case studies, tools, information about training, and there's loads going on. Is there anything else we want to add, Julia, in terms of the Foundation for Common Land going forward?
Well, thank you, Jo. And yes, it's all very exciting at the moment. We've been hugely appreciative, not only to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, but also to Esme Fairbairn, Garfield Weston, and the many other partners who've put funding into our Upland Commons. We're really excited about next steps. We just heard last week that we've been awarded some resilience funding, because the Foundation for Common Land is really tiny. Everyone works part-time. And we're all, you know, do a couple of days a week, and it's hard work holding it all together. So we're excited to have some support and funding to develop ourselves as a charity, so we can do more outreach work. And it's all about, you know, what we've learned is that it's about this bottom-up work, enabling owners of common land, commoners, statutory organisations, wildlife trusts, peat partnerships, everybody involved in the management of common, to do more good work in their locality and building those bridges of learning across areas. So we're really pleased to have been awarded this funding for the next couple of years, and that will enable us to work closely with yourselves. One of the projects we're looking at is building a network of Commons Association officers in the southwest, so from the Quantux through to Bodmin. And similarly, we'll just apply for some FiPL funding to do something similar in North Yorkshire. So watch this space. We're absolutely delighted that you've been able to join us today, and we'll be moving forward and working with you to meet the needs of Commons going forward.
Thanks, Julia. And just to say, we love to hear from people, you know, so do get in touch. Go to our website. There's email addresses there. You can sign up to our mailing list. Stay in touch with us. Look out for more updates as we move forward. And yeah, stay in touch. And thank you so much for taking up your lunch. I don't know, but I'm ready for my lunch now. So thank you for taking up your lunchtime to come and join us today. We've really appreciated that, and it's been great to see so many people. Final thanks to John, Hector, Tracy, Amanda, Claire, Kinga, Kira and Julia for sharing so much great information and practical examples of what we've been up to. So good to see you all, and have a super afternoon, everybody. Thank you.